Good morning, Storytime friends. Today's story is The Possum and the Peeper, words and pictures by Ann Hunter. Jocko, I see you have some pussy willows. We see them in the spring and they're very, very soft, just like a little kitten. Peep, peep, peep. Possum opened one small eye. What was that noise? He buried his head deeper into his warm winter nest. Peep, peep, peep. I'll never get back to sleep with all that racket, he said. I'm going to go find out who's being so inconsiderate so early in the spring. Possum stepped out into the cool green morning. Peep, peep, peep. Possum looked up. A pair of catbirds were building their nest high in a tree among the new leaves. Is that you peeping up there? Demanded Possum. Not us, said the catbirds. We can scarcely hear ourselves sing with all that clamor. Well, I'm going to go see for myself who's making such an awful din. We'll come too, said the catbirds. We can search high in the trees while you look low on the ground. They set off through the woods. Possum stopped to sniff the trout lilies blooming along the path. Peep, peep, peep. They followed the noise up a hill. At the crest of the hill stood a bear, blinking blearily outside his cave. Who woke me from my warm winter sleep? He snarled, showing his long white teeth. Was it you? He said, spying Possum. No, said Possum, but we are on our way to find out who it was. I'd better come along then, growled the bear. You may need someone of my size when you find this fellow. They continued over the hill, the catbirds flying overhead, the bear grumbling along behind. The spring sun shone down warm on their feathers and fur. Peep, peep, peep. The sound was getting louder and louder. They came down to a marsh where they saw a muskrat spring cleaning his house. Excuse us, shouted Possum. Have you been peeping? What? Yelled the muskrat. I can't hear you over all that noise. Well, we're on our way to put a stop to it once and for all, said the bear. If you could show us the way through this swamp. They pressed on, following the muskrat, peering between new green shoots and into dark pools. Closer and closer, louder and louder. I see the bear's paw and looks like a bug on the lily pad. The possum and I think a turtle and dragonfly and muskrat. Possum pushed aside some reeds. There's the catbirds still there too. Here. Aha! They cried, squinting at a small spot on the bank. How could such a speck of a thing make such a huge racket? Asked the bear. You have woken up the entire forest, little frog, said Possum. The little Peeper looked up from the possum to the muskrat to the catbirds and finally to the bear. Then he puffed out his tiny throat. "Rise and shine," he shouted. "Shake a leg, build your nests and clean your burrows. It's spring, it's spring, it's spring." The bear stepped closer to the little frog. "I," he growled, "don't like to be awakened so early in the year, especially by a frog." "Oh, but look at the beautiful spring flowers," cried the Peeper, and sniffed the good spring smells. "How could you want to sleep through such a glorious spring day?" The animals looked around at the budding trees. They smelled the blooming flowers and felt the warm sun shining. They listened to the buzzing bees and warbling birds. Legs stretched and bellies rumbled. It was true, quite true. No one could deny that it was a fine thing indeed to be out and about on the first warm day of spring. "There's nothing quite like a good walk on a spring morning," proclaimed Possum. "Won't you join us for breakfast, little Peeper?" But the spring Peeper was already peeping again at the top of his lungs. "Time for breakfast, toast and tea. The early bird gets the worm. Peep, peep, peep." You can see the muskrat's eating some ferns. And there's the little Peeper. And the possum next to it. And some turtles and dragonflies and all kinds of creatures. Peep, peep, peep. And that's the Possum and the Peeper. Enjoy the spring. See you next week.